this is a common thing that most business owners end up doing, and coaches, which is they kind of look at their life, they look at the struggles, they speak of their clients, and then they presume that, oh, this is going to make for great content, right? Now, whilst that serves your current audience who know, like, and trust you, if you're trying to branch out to a new audience who don't know, like, and trust you, they quite frankly don't give a shit. You haven't earned that from them. That's for someone who's way deep into your world. Honestly, that type of content where it's more world building. I had an argument with my partner. I had this thing that came up that was stressful in my marriage. I had this learning and lesson and stuff in my marriage. That stuff is fantastic in a medium where people have entered deep into ecosystem, meaning they're actually in your newsletter and is a lot more intimate, and you can share that stuff because there's someone who's an engaged listener who really deeply cares about that stuff. But when there's new listeners, you haven't earned the right with them to kind of share those insights because they're thinking, well, who the fuck are you, Mark? Who the hell is this person? So I think that's a mistake that so many business owners end up making, which is making content essentially based off of vibes and what you feel like, but it's not you being intentional about how do I cover the problems and topics that my audience that I want to attract, my dream clients, would absolutely be itching to listen to and consume right now. How do I figure out what's based on demand, what's gaining traction to grow my audience and not just keep reaching the same listeners or growing very slowly? Because the podcast right now is being of service to me, but not actually of service to my audience, because you're thinking about you rather than thinking intentionally about the people you want to serve. And then you're thinking, well, it's been 12 months. Why isn't the show growing? Well, maybe it's because the podcast right now, when we trace back the essence of the show, is coming from a place that isn't intentional about who the podcast is for. Therefore, at the core of where it's coming from, there's no intentionality, there's no clarity, there's no focus. What you create from that is not going to be focused, it's not going to attract the right people, it's not going to be magnetic because there's no real actual meat and substance to it. There's no heart, there's no soul into it. To me, that feels more like a hobby rather than an intentional business you're growing to be of service to people, to grow your podcast. And it basically guarantees, Matt, that you keep putting more time, effort, and energy into the show, thinking things are going great, and as far as like the content's great, but not actually getting the reach you want or the sales you want at the level you want, because the podcast is still operating like a hobby rather than a business that's being of service. Mm-hmm. That is, I could pick like I could go like the title and this thing and show notes, but honestly, Matt, like that's the biggest thing right there at the core of it. You know, I would love to know, is there any reason why you haven't been as intentional and focused with the show? Because I know when you spoke to Archie, I think a couple of years ago now, right? That was still a focus for you, and it seems like it's a very fundamental piece that doesn't seem like it's been taken as seriously. So let me know how you're thinking through this right now. If there's anything I've got inaccurate, but that's the piece I'm curious about at the moment.